Okay, we're back again with the 425th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Mr. Kesh, are you ready to take questions, or do you have some more you'd like to present at this point?
Yep, let's go ahead. Thank you very much. By the way, if you have gathered or not, this week is the birthday of Raphael. Happy birthday, Raphael. And I think I can say he has devoted his time and life to the foundation and the humanity. And I think it's the best gift we could give to the nation of Brazil. It's for him to decide where he goes as is his birthday gift. And it's for the thanks to all the Brazilians who work so hard to extend the knowledge from Amazon to the biggest cities of this country. It's a beautiful nation. We've been there a couple of times, and we always say we go back. And we know the nation has the capability and the knowledge of the space, but let's see how the devotion to their faith will bring man and the science of this nation to be parallel with others in a very rapid way. By the end of, or by mid-April, is for Raphael to decide where he wants the unit to be delivered to with the agreement of his government, and we will deliver to that point at the university or that governmental space organization. We have met with officials in the scientific board of the government of Brazil while we were there a couple of years ago before Corona, and it's amazing how this nation will bring the space technology and knowledge of the what we call man to a new dimension. Thank you very much for all your work, the Brazilian team, and what you've done and what you are doing. And I think it was the best way to give a gift at the right time to a nation and a person who has worked so hard the past couple of years to share the knowledge freely across Brazilian nation. We wait and see, and we hopefully see more to come. It's your job to go to your governments and universities and ask them to request from the Keshe Foundation a standard office at Keshe Foundation KFM.global, which is the usual office contact for the Keshe Foundation. And then we'll respond. And we'll see. It has to be, I want it for my country, will not work. It has to come from official university or embassy or the government to the Keshe Foundation in Austria. And we will respond as we've done before by giving the keys. This time we give the system. There's no use telling us, I want it for my nation. It has to come from your nation, from your universities. And we shall deliver. There's no use coming there and just sitting. You have to prepare your nation to receive it, to what we call use it to elevate and bring the knowledge across, and to share it directly with the scientists, and the scientists open it into the dimension of the knowledge of the citizens. Any questions?
Okay, we have a hand up with Andreas here, so go ahead, Andreas.
Good morning, good day, Mr. Kesh, Rick, and to everyone. Thank you for the beautiful message today. We have two questions, human questions from the German-speaking community. And one would be, what about the rings of the Saturn? Was that a planet before, or how does that look? Can you say maybe something to it? Thank you.
There is a paper written called Ring of Saturn. This paper is not released, but in it we explain how the rings are created from within the center of the planet. And it's a characteristics with all the planetary system with a plasmatic center. The rings are primarily created by interaction of different fields superimposed on the other, as the planet is at infancy. Saturn is one of the youngest, what we call the planetary system in the solar system. And as it will age and the field within interacts, we see less and less rings. We have these rings around the Earth. We see even these rings around the sun. But as you have different materials gathered over the travel of the Saturn from the edge of the solar system to inner part to where it is now, it has collected different materials overlaying each other. And each ring is manifestation of that overlaying material over each other. In a paper called The Ring of Saturn, I have explained this very clearly. And let me see, there is a problem in my whiteboard. I cannot use my pen. We have a problem with using it. I don't understand why, but I could explain it. And in some of the teachings in the past, we have explained this, where the rings of the Saturn comes out of the creation of the what we call overlaying of different density materials. Oops, it comes back to it. I'll try to do it with a finger. I think that'll be the best way to do it. Yeah. The pen has died. You have a center of the Saturn. You have the sun in the center. This sun, by radiating different fields in different directions, leads through its dynamic structure that the materials evolve and revolve around this point. The Saturn was created somewhere here as a collection of some atoms and some plasmas. As it evolved and rotated, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it comes in, goes through different layers. Now you have the Saturn center with another layer on top of it. And then this process carries on. And then it comes to another point where at this point is different materials in this area. So now you have the blue, you have the red, and then you have the green. As it goes toward the center, Earth started the same way. Earth at the moment is somewhere here, but it started in the same area. So as the what we call Saturn closes in, we'll come to this point over billions of years. What this effect has is that we have the center. Now the interaction of different layers on top of each other creates the ring of the fields of it. So now you see the ring of Saturn, the green red one, and then the green one.
We cannot hear you, Mr. Cash.
I muted, sorry, I muted myself by mistake. So you see this layer by layer, the blue one stays as a center. The red one has created this ring. The green one creates this ring. And then it goes on, it carries on with the next step. If you went through a different strings, another layer on top, this will create another ring. And these layers are not necessarily material. These layers could be different hydrogen strength plasmas as they are on the boundary of the solar system. So when we see the rings, it shows the composition of the inside materials, what composition they are. We see this with the brain of the man. If you look at the brain of the man, you have the soul and you have different density, what we call brain tissues. There's no difference. That's in interaction with its environment. Gradually, as the Saturn makes its way to, let's say, this position in the solar system, it most probably loses the green and the black. We see one. We see this with the sun the same. Sun has its own rings, the same as the Saturn, but usually it's one or two. So, and then because of these different strengths of the fields, we see different, what we call materials according to the strength of the fields in each layer. There's nothing unusual. We understand the process. And in some of the rings of, not necessarily, we don't see that such in Saturn, in other solar systems with other planetary systems like this, we see that, for example, this layer is moving clockwise and the other layers are all anti-clockwise. It's just that field pressures inside create one of them to rotate in different way. And then that reflects in the ring which we see outside. We use this knowledge in defense technology of the spaceships. In the spaceship programs, we when we build the system, we create opposite interaction fields, knowing this knowledge within our reactors. We don't go and build it. In the reactor, we create a condition that one of the fields is opposite to the others inside. So the field outside. This is used for defense technology. This is actually how part of the Iranian defense technology used in Iraq in the last January, 2 years ago, because it creates a directly total black condition you cannot see. The purpose of this in the space technology is very simple, is that if, let's say, a meteorite comes in and you are single track, what we see like meteorite will come in. But when you have a double layer, if you penetrate this, now this one reflects it back out. It's a very advanced knowledge, and I have built this one in the space reactors we use today. We don't create two motors rotating on top of each other. We create a field which their interaction creates the condition. There are no motors, there is no containment in the universe. It's just a field process. Go back to part of the teaching where I explained that in the reactors, especially the first blue reactor which we made in Belgium, and then in the first Iranian flight system, we saw the reactor going anti-clockwise. Stops, and then it goes clockwise. When we change the pressure and the field forces within the reactor, you don't need containment. In the future, man will not have a house built of bricks and mortar. We create our walls the same as the earth through the field interaction of the forces within the reactor we put in the center of our property or in the universe. And then understanding this, we create very much the way you create clouds, not to be seen. You create partition. And then by changing the fields, you decide you want to see the light. But the world of the knowledge of the physical dimension in the next few months and years will change. And this is all is in the teaching. It's not something new. Go through the patterns, you see it. Now you understand what it means. The structure of the space technology, the structure of the space technology and elevation of the soul of the man has one principle. It's man who has broken it up in bits and now he doesn't know which bits fits to what. This is the same, as I said, in our negotiations with IEA and Iran. You'll see a lot of game played in the next couple of weeks. Will be signed. Iran is trying to be limited to 3.65% enrichment, where they reach 60%. But I said in the report, what's the ridiculous joke when we need 100% purified plasma nuclear material to achieve a perfect flight? Iran, in a matter state, is bound to make more than 3.65, but in the plasma state, they produce 100% pure nuclear plasma, which is more dangerous than 3.65 or 60% enriched matter state. They don't understand it. And Dr. Grossi has made me laugh how he is even the head of IAEA when he doesn't understand what's in front of him. And as he doesn't understand, Iranians are playing with him. It's like a cat playing with a mouse, and the same with American scientists. And this is what we're sending units to NASA. The same technology, the same understanding is here. You absorbed all the radiation fields in, layer by layer. And one of the reasons gaseous planets, what we call gaseous because we think gases outside, but actually in the center, the solid part of it, is this condition. Because to create these internal rings, you have to have a different gaseous inertia. Without it, you can't have. You can't have gold if Earth doesn't create the inertia of gold. You can't have hydrogen if the Earth does not create the inertia of the matter state of it, in the gaseous state or the gaseous state or the matter state. Knowledge has to be understood in totality, and then you understand the ring of Saturn. There is a paper. It was given to Dirk Laurens, bless his soul, to do the drawings for it. And the last weeks when I left Belgium, I took it off him. Otherwise, you would have seen the in the illustration there, but the paper is fully written. Any other question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kesh, for this bringing it forward, the understanding. We have another question about the motions, and the question is simple. Why did the motions weren't allowed to open the window during their training?
Ask them.
Ask them. Yeah, they don't know exactly. We speculated.
Ask them, they will tell you. First of all, when we were in, you have to know what happened with the motions. Motions, we started in Ghana, and then through other means, halfway through, we traveled to China, South China Sea, into the Hunan Island, which is parallel with the same line as what we call Hawaii. It's a beautiful place. And teaching carried on actually in the open spaces of the, what you call, the hotel in Hunan. There are different understanding, different positions, and different totality of the work with motions. They were given a lot of knowledge, but there was a reason they were taught through their souls, but they took it through diversion physicality. Some of them are enlightened, some of them understand some of it, but in time they'll go back to it and they'll understand what they were taught and what is the reason behind it, what was there to do. It's a process, and it's what all of us will come to understand. While you're there as a German community, we thank you for all your support, especially for all your travels to Linz. The Linz exhibition center is more or less booked morning and afternoon, I've been told, for the next few weeks by mainly Germans coming from Germany in different groups, and to see it and to be there. We thank the German community for their solid support in for the exhibition center. Now all the restrictions in Linz has been taken up. It's a normal city to travel to and come and go. You're supporting, and we hope we respond back to you. As you know, the First Keshe Foundation Enhancement Center, as what we call the for elevation of the soul of the man, the physicality of the man, has been acquired, and the company has been set up and is going through the process. The place should be ready hopefully in the next few months. We thank those who are responsible behind it, and Germany receives or becomes the first what we call the center in Europe, fully operational. It's a beautiful property, and people behind it have been working very hard to get it done. And we hopefully see it's working as operation now that the enhancement units and others are getting ready to leave. We are the operators of the systems, and the German community can go to this enhancement center, wellness center in the next few months, maybe next 3-4 months, hopefully. But the building and everything has been done and set up. Again, thanks to a lot of support from the German community. Any other question?
Thank you, Mr. Keshe, for your support for humanity and all beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, a question from Jan in the YouTube. Question, thanks for the message, Mr. Keshe. How can we help speed up the process of peace between Iran and the 5+1, as we are now 5 days into the new Persian New Year and no sign of an agreement?
Agreement has been done. The agreement is total and complete. There is a couple of points which is actually irrelevant. Needs to be done. There is a couple of other bits which is to be done. Main problem, there's not a problem, the hiccup which you were not in public aware of, is that the Germans, the English and the French are trying to get as much as possible before the end, before the Americans sign the paper. If you don't understand it, you should have seen it. Iran is using these points to gain back for what was done wrong for past few years. Iranian leadership is playing it very skillfully. you saw it just 2-3 days before the Iranian New Year. The British released 400 million euros of money which was kept from Iran for past decades, and that was used to release 2 people who was supposedly to be there to be released. And I advise the Iranian government to keep an eye on these 2 people who've been released, because it's a pattern of the British that they use these later on to create mayhem and become the leaders of whatever they're trying to push. We saw that in Libya, we saw that in Iraq. So my advice to the Iranian government has been to keep a very close eye on these 2 guys and to the people who've been released, and because they become the next seed of the problems for a lot of problems which is set to set up. They're sent in to do things, and then when they get captured or they've been found out, then they pay for them to be released. We saw the same thing with the present leader of Libya, how British paid for him to come out and then they put him back in as a leader. And so there is a diplomacy going on. French want some gaining. We know what it is. The book is, because it has to be signed by everyone. British and the French and the Germans are collecting the crumbs in a way before the big signature. We see the position with the French will be solved very soon. They get what they want. In a way, Iran gets more than what they think. And the Germans has already shared the nuclear power technology in what we call in SK in Belgium. And they want the big share of the market which Iran controls in medical part. In principle, America and the US have agreed with, what they call Iran, have agreed with everything. It's just that the little kids are playing their games. They should be signed within the next few days. Once the British now, they paid the 400 million and the other bits are all getting set. There's a big problem if you see in the background of it. Even when the British paid the money, it didn't go to Iran Central Bank. It had to go into a third country because legally they have closed the SWIFT account of Iran. They cannot transfer funds into Iran directly. This has caused another mayhem. Now the Americans have to go back and open the SWIFT system, and we'll see changes. You got to realize how the Americans cheated in the 2015. The Europeans, I understand why the Europeans are doing this. They're very right in a way to do it. They're trying to get what they can get before the signing. And if you notice, Iran communicates through the 3 EU members, or what used to be, they would call EU with the British now out, with the Americans. Because they set up this, if these 3 don't sign, the negotiation cannot go anywhere. They're trying to milk it as much as they can. Because in the last round of negotiation in 2015, American cheated beyond imagination. We watched it. I told the Iranian side, be careful, we're not going to get burned with the behavior of the Americans. And what happened, you can go and check. If you remember, I gave a talk in Mike Harris' talk on the Thursday before the end of the opposition group in Senate, that can anyone in America and Senate, any senator, object this to this signing of the treaty to create 10 to 15 million jobs. Nobody understood the message at that time. And on a Monday, the opposition leader resigned, and we have seen him coming back again, trying to create more guarantees for the state of Israel. But what it meant, if you understood, 3 months prior to signing of the 2015 agreement, America issued a notice to all the nations that if anybody signs any contract with Iran before the signing of the 2015 accord, will be sanctioned heavily. And French, the Germans, and the British and the Italians stayed out waiting for the flag to come down that they can run in and sign contracts for different factories. But American government, Obama, and especially Biden was the main key person behind this move. encouraged and sent all the American companies to sign the memorandum of understanding with all the appropriate parallel companies in Iran. They didn't sign a contract, they signed a memorandum of understanding, which meant it could be immediately transferred to contract on the day of signing. And that's what they did. Boeing did the same. They didn't allow Airbus to come in. They already signed a memorandum of understanding. And then the French and the European realized they were taken for a ride. You could sign a memorandum of understanding, but you couldn't sign a contract. And the Americans immediately transferred this and created millions of jobs in the US. And by the time the British and the French went in, there was nothing to eat. The bread was gone. This time, the three EU countries, with the support of Italy, especially in the background, they're making sure they're getting their crumbs. And this is we were expecting this to come much earlier, but the British played in the last game. So they gave some contracts which will go to BP. This is because the Chinese took their 400 billion contract on the oil and the gas in what we call Kish, the island of Kish in south of Iran. And so the delay is just played by the three EU members trying to collect as much as they can. The Russians have got more or less a free nuclear supply from Iran as a supplier of nuclear material. And we see in the next generation of upcoming nuclear reactors built around the world, Iran becomes a supplier of their fuel. This is already as part of the negotiation in the background. And the objection with Iran providing and producing a nuclear weapon has gone to the bin with the documents we provided to the IAEA and the American government, and we saw how the Iranian reacted. So the process is ongoing, and we were aware that the Israelis were lying and cheating, and they tried to prevent this process to go ahead. There was an attempt on my life in Istanbul 2 weeks ago, which we kept it out of line, and again by Mossad, planned by them, and it's all pictured and videoed, and this was because Israelis knew that we opened their hands and they didn't want it to go any further. And that's what I said 2 weeks ago on my return from Istanbul to Vienna, and immediately meeting with the Iranian officials, we saw the reaction of Iran leaving what we call Vienna. We saw immediately what was done by the Iranians to the headquarters of the Mossad in Erbil in Iraq. You cannot attempt on life of any more Iranian nuclear physicist. We respond accordingly. You tried to take my life. We responded again to your basis, which was Center for Killing Iranian Nuclear Physicists. That was in Erbil, as you heard 2 weeks ago. Now you understand the whole process behind, in the background. If any more attempts made by the Israelis to kill another Iranian nuclear physicist, we respond accordingly in a very strong way. The understanding of the technology and the peace is part of each other. This is why earlier on I announced that we will share the space technology of Iran with the invitation of our Universal Council member for Israel with the nation of Israel, not with the state of Israel. It's his job to arrange it through the appropriate universities and the presence of Iranian scientists. Sharing in knowledge is part of our work, irrespective of religion, race, and position. But I have to have the clear indication from the Iranian leadership that this unit can go to Israel and we get a collaboration on the scientific level, the same as what we are doing with NASA. Any other question?
Jan has another question about that. He says, we all know that the US withdrew from the agreement in 2015. How can we be sure the US won't do it again? As long as they are not sincere and just playing with Iran, we won't get anywhere.
This wasn't a play. You have to understand the state of mind of the last American president. He is money orientated. He got his daughter by paper married to second richest family in Israel. He got the support of the what we call Jewish lobby. He gave the White House in their hand for him to become, to be able to do whatever he wanted to do. And part of that bargain, selling the United States to the Jewish lobby, was ending of the contract with, or what we call the peace negotiation. This is understood fully in the world of politics and diplomacy. He had nothing to do. He just sold. The guy will sell his shirt for anything. And his son-in-law, a leading Jewish family, they took a lot. They had a lot of work to do because in the documents which was released to IAEA, to the Iranian American in the past 2 or 3 weeks, they created the lie using the Keshe Foundation reactor as a nuclear, what they call it, bomb to be produced. And we saw massive sales of arms, making Iran as a bogeyman to the Saudis, to Dubai, to other emirates in the coast. It was a trade deal. It wasn't anything else. And it was done purely for the family of your last president. They took your whole nation for a ride. And the Iranian nation paid for this lie. And in my report, communication with the American government, is that it's the job of the President Biden to put this right. It's a responsibility to put this right. That American government was taken for a ride by lies and cheats of Trump and his son-in-law. It's very clear. Very, very clear. You look suddenly in the past 4 years, Israeli signed massive contracts with Saudi Arabia, which were our biggest enemy. And the same with the Emirates. Because they took the money, 100 million, 1 billion, 10 billion contracts to defend where they had no defense. It was a family job. And the whole of Iranian nation paid for it, and you Americans worse. Any other question?
Okay, we have a hand up with Paul Yatut. Can you go ahead there, Paul?
We usually have problem with him and his connections. We haven't heard from him for a long time. Actually, we heard from him. I talked to him last year, but we, as a foundation, we haven't heard from him for a long time.
Well, we're not hearing from him yet here now, so we'll pass on to the next person and wait for you, Paul, if you can open your mic. Salomia
Can
would
I
be
give
next.
a message, please?
Yes.
Paul, I'm sure you can hear me. As we arrange, we speak after the teaching. If there is any problem, we discuss it as we arrange after the meeting. There is no problem. After the teaching this morning. Go ahead. The next question.
Hello, it's Salomea here. Hello, Mr. Keshe. I'm again worried about these robots, soldiers from China at the border of India. My question is, can we do something to stop the repeating situation of Ukraine and Russia now in Asia between China and India and Taiwan, and if we can do something as a foundation or as a universal council?
We already have. We already started, and I think you missed the point in today's teaching. By giving these new units to every nation and them developing it, we'll come to the point on the physical dimension that the borders have no value. The Chinese can be in India within seconds, and if the Indian government asks for a space reactor to be delivered to them, Indians can do the same. don't forget the teachings will be simultaneous to all of them. It's now a matter of who will, they all will, and collectively we have maybe 20, 30 nations racing for the 6th of June. It's not the Keshe Foundation anymore. And as I said to the NASA scientists past couple of weeks, we teach you everything. And you have to understand you need collectively 2 units to work. So NASA has one half of the equation and John has the other. And how NASA collaborates to it is one side. And we'll see, it'll be very, very interesting if the State of Vatican, for example, asks for a unit. Would they try to understand the elevation of the soul through the systems? Would they try to create a new dimension in cheating man, which they cannot cheat anymore? Or we'll see one day they close the door of Vatican and say, there's no religion. Would they do that? The same we have with the Iranian government. Landing of 2 units in Tehran, gifted to the Iranian Sharif University, especially. I love working with that university. That's where I did the first research, and the Keshe Foundation. Would it allow to claim what? To bring what out? And these robots and the things, what you talk about, it will play little games. And secondly, China, we were expecting these kind of things to appear in the border of China. It's a high altitude. 2-3 years ago, I saw things in China that it brought me a lot of understanding of what is the possibilities of what they are doing. The soldiers at the high altitude, especially Chinese, cannot perform as they do because of the mixture. And they are trying to develop different things to be able to bring normality to the soldiers. And Tibetan are used to that altitude. Soldiers of Chinese army coming from the East Coast cannot stand it. They've developed different paints and different things. We did some research with them. I developed a kind of mixture of gases that allows the Chinese army in the barracks or in the rooms to reach a very high negative oxygen and hold, and it changes their posture and their life. But outside, they can't do that. So from what I saw and we've seen in the background, these kind of things were imminent to come out. But the whole game is by introducing these new rapid deployment and delivery of these space reactors. It's like a child who's doing something naughty, you distract it with something else, and then they forget about the naughtiness, is to deliver these units. I gift 1 or 2 units in this process to the Chinese, to Beijing, the Space University, for them to start developing. Up to now, we kept China out of it because we produce it. The first couple of reactors will be gifted by Wang Lin and the Chinese team to the Chinese government in the next couple of weeks, with the Chinese Space University to be able to develop this technology. We have a dilemma with the Russian structure at the moment with Ukraine, but that does not stop us to share the same technology with the Russians. They cannot fall behind. I'm traveling to London to meet with officials in UK to transfer the new technology, especially to BNFL, which is a home cry, was educated as a nuclear physicist, to develop the technology at a university level. It will be gifted to Queen Mary College, University of London, and we'll see the next steps. We are setting up everything gradually, step by step in that process. These units have to go to nuclear centers because they have nuclear facilities. You cannot fly with the gases. It goes back to the origin of the space flight in Tehran and Sharif University. And it's inevitable that will go that way. We'll see donation of unit to European universities in a way once we sort out the situation with the state of Belgium. You got to understand Belgians are getting a lot of pressure from EU because how can you convict a man who used the same technology where we're receiving technology for advancement of what we call humanity? We've been told there is a move to take this into Parliament in Brussels in the coming months, that they revoke the judgment, and we are waiting for that to see if it takes shape. The state of Belgium will be forced by EU. EU will not receive any units except what comes to Austria and stays within the Keshe Foundation. And we'll see what the next steps on it. You have to distract this playful child, which likes to destroy, to start to build. And this is the purpose why we are giving so many enhancement units to different nations. And as you've seen, the factory is going into mass production, and we expect to reach the first 100 can be done within the next 2 or 3 months. And then we plan to put 100 more. Keshe Foundation is financing up to 1,000 units in the next 2 years from the factory. In a way, we are giving the initial units, they can build it themselves, or we keep the initial units to be reproduced and they purchase from the Keshe Foundation. But you have to understand, the further development with this flight system is a system without physicality, which means we don't see the dome. We enter a field zone like Earth. You don't go in a house. When you come to Earth, you pass the atmosphere and you enter. And this is the ultimate object. I think teaching will be in that level in the next 12 months. So don't worry about it. We have a better plan. Is to distract this child from his mischievous conduct. When China, when India, when Japan, America, and the Russians and Brazilians all have a unit and racing for a space, and then in that process generate their own souls and understand the next step, we are at it. We've done the right job. And as you've seen, units are gone into mass production.
Yes, thank you. They live in another century, creating wars for a new world.
We all live in the same century. It's just changing the man's habit. Changing the man's habit is the hardest thing to do. And we see the collective change, or the primarily the essence of what is to come. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Beck?
Okay, we have a couple of questions in the YouTube here from Brett. Brett Henley asks, is the cup of the universe 6th level or 7th level of the matter state? Does that make sense?
No. You have a matter state in every level. Even in a 5th cup, you can create a matter. Most of you have seen gases in there. So within the structure of the soul, you still create gases, you still create inertia, condition. It's part of the process. You don't have one level strength only. You have a collection of levels of the strength, and those, they interact at a certain point with the strength of the environment and they create gases. If you look very close, very tight, you might see some elements, matter states even in the cup number 5. And then you have the inertia cup, then you have the gravity cup. Understand the knowledge. And then when you go to the cup of universe, you have a ball game of how you play with it. You create the condition of the Zeus, you'll end up in Zeus. You create the condition of Earth, you live on Earth condition. You live the condition of Mars, you will do that, or any other place. understand the knowledge, and then the rest will become easy. This is part of what we have a problem with at this moment of time, understanding it.
Okay. From Paulina, 777 Paulina. Mr. Kesh, the Kesh sales UFO, I think he's talking about the hovering UFO that's found in the Kesh Foundation store. It says sometimes rotates left, then right. Would you be so kind as to explain this phenomena?
I think we just explained that in this picture, which is on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the field forces of the day. You, as I said before in one of the teachings, go back to maybe 5 or 6 years ago when we showed the unit with the spikes on it, with a lot of parachutes on it, which was left outside. And we saw the change of the fields between day and night. One of these you can test is very simple. In some part of this planet, in some days, if you weigh yourself on a scale, let's say before 7 o'clock, and you weigh yourself after 10 o'clock, you say, oh, I lost weight 1 kilo, or I gained weight 1 kilo. My diet works. But in fact, it's the field gravitational of the Earth which changes. You haven't lost. It's not the what we call atmospheric compression or whatever. These are field forces, gravitational field forces. And it's the same fields interact with the magnetic field of these flying objects on your system. Depends what fields and what environment is dominating that day. And goes back again into the teaching which I explained here. Outside forces dictates the field forces on the magnet. Even in your electricity lines, you have this. Variation is not from the power source, it's from the field of the universe which changes it. We understood this in power transmission years ago. Sometimes we produce 2 kilowatts, but when it comes to substation, it's 1.6 kilowatts. Because the cable line on its path is giving energy to its environment. At some point, has parallel with it. And sometimes we produce 2 kilowatts, but we get 2.4. Depends what gravitational field of the Earth at the substation creates in respect to what we call deep beams inserted to create that what we call voltage difference. And it's a magnetic field flow. It creates a current too. So it changes your power levels. And it's the same with your what you call UFO systems and the moon. It very, very seldom happens. It depends on where you are, in what position and how you position. If you lift it up maybe 2 meters higher, it will go the opposite way. When you bring it down, it will go back to the opposite direction. And it depends on the field, daily field. You've seen this in some places. They say it's the visual deception by when you think you're on a hill and the car down the hill, it goes up the hill. This is the same kind of process things. It's not a visual game, it's a field interaction of the environment on the system. Even your current flow can create that. Even if you switch your wires back, unplug it different ways, sometimes you get it. It all depends on the field interaction at the point of, what do you call it? The two systems, because they are independent from each other. One of them changes, so forces the other one to react to it. This is what Einstein called the funny things. You have to find out what is the funny and change the direction of the rotation of your UFO. Any other question? There is something interesting with these UFOs, because there are speakers, they play music. Try to change a channel and see by changing channel, you can change the direction of rotation. Change into different stations, different frequencies. Any other question?
We have a hand up with Nikolai here. Nikolai, could you go ahead, please?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you for taking my question, and thank you for the beautiful teaching today, Mr. Kesh. It's a wonderful gift that you've given to for the birthday of Raphael. I think that's quite fitting. My question has to do with, well, it's a question to do with the intellect and to do with the heart. In what I would call many so-called spiritual communities, or otherwise people who have, let's stay with the spiritual community, they will say, come from the heart, because that is the strongest field. And in attempting to teach some of these teachings that come from the Kesh Foundation and from your knowledge and from the greater collective knowledge about the location of the soul within the brain, these people who have learned a slightly different understanding have very great difficulty with the idea that the intellect and the soul in the brain could be more powerful, or could be perhaps that the soul could be within the structure of the brain. This is very difficult for them. And they say, no, come from the heart, forget what is in the brain. Can you speak to this and perhaps expand some knowledge in this area?
In what form?
Perhaps I want to know in which regard, how are the fields of the heart perceived to be so strong? Is it that it is the manifestation of two other fields, that the fields within the brain and the fields within the body, the soul of the man and the soul of the physicality, create the structure?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. One is tuning to the other and vice versa. This is what your cell says and said, my heart says don't do, because you receive the message through the soul. It's a translator, interpreter of the message. Understanding of the totality is the part that I would say my heart says don't do. And where did the heart get the message from? Partially from its own interaction with the fields on the matter state, and partially from the soul. Soul of the man never sleeps. The sun never stops shining. It's the man who is on the facing of the sun, side of the earth, or on the back of it. It's then we receive the light of it in different strengths. It's the same with the soul of physicality. Very strange. Maybe in the future, mankind will understand. I'm not a very good drawer. The soul of the man shines in all dimensions and directions. What happened when the sun shines on the left of your heart or the right of your heart? Would the position of the heart in respect to soul creates different field interactions of different strength, that it creates different emotion within the man? Which part of the heart will receive air from the lungs first of the highest order and takes back from the other? The field interaction with the soul and the conversion of the fields at the heart, that's why we feel the emotion. We feel my heart doesn't work, because the sun sits above in the center of the brain. And now you have this rocking chair of the heartbeat of the man in different positions continuously. Then you understand why man has a mixed motion and emotion. The sun, the soul, does not stop shining. It's the position of the heart which receives it. And then how you react. The blood flow is sporadic in the body of the man, in the circulation. It condenses in this area. So it has more possibility of interactions. As it gives, it receives. It's not a one-way traffic that we only receive. Where emotion goes there, it feeds the soul, and the soul communicates with other souls. That's how your balance of your doing comes. And we see how things turn out. And we see how we feel the fields due to what we call, you got to understand something very simple. This goes back again to what I call science of physicality. You have the heart of the man. You have a blood circulation, which we call the dark blood, the oxygenated, and we have a blood which is oxygenated. Now we understand the blood of the man is a gans. Brings not only the blood, but with it brings the emotion of what the physicality has done. And every blood, when it comes into the heart of the man, like the way we have the liver, which we store from the blood surplus, the soul of the man has the same liver, memory bank of whatever has been brought from the physical emotion. Then you have the source of life or the environment, and this comes with a different strength. We look at the physical condition in how much blood it goes. In the new knowledge, we look at how much fields it brings in and how much fields come with this one. The interaction of the fields between the two creates a new dimension, what we call the soul of physicality. And this, in turn, interacts in a mixture of fields with the soul of the man. The same as it gives, it takes. Exchange of information in the central bank. Or most of it. Because the rest of it, through the same blood flow, will go around the brain, the skull, and comes back. And it's very much what we never understood. Where does the gravity starts and where does magnetic fields finishes? And this is, if you understand this, then you can do a lot in the future technology of understanding knowledge of creation to decide on the condition of the physicality of the man. These two have to work in unison to keep the soul and the physicality in all dimensions as a field, where the physicality is manifestation in interaction with the field of environment. Then, now you tell me, why do I feel that emotion in my heart? It's where the sun shines, interacts with totality of the field. Where here it collects in this circulation around the brain information only about physical interaction with the essence of the physical soul of the man in the heart. Now you understand. Then, if you understood this, Earth, Moon, Jupiter, planet Zeus, another galaxy, is how we allow this field interact with the field of the soul to lead to the, if decided, to creation of the dynamic physicality of the being. It's as simple as that. You convert this into the knowledge where the sun is the soul of the creator of the man. And then you have the soul of the man. It's the same. Then you understand the, what I call the soul of physicality. Then you see how the soul of the man, soul of physicality, connects through the soul of the creator. It's so simple. Next time when you feel in your heart, see if you can feel the emotion of the soul. And then that emotion of the soul, if you can feel it, then you decide, is it with the interaction of the soul of creator? Then you become aware of the knowledge of the universe, the creation. As messengers, we understand the totality. And that's why we can teach so normal and so at the level that everybody can understand. Any other question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. There's a question from Ed. You may have answered already in a way, but is there a connection between inertia and emotion? And if so, could you elaborate on this?
Emotion has a strength which changes to physicality. When you feel sad, you create cries and tears or whatever. You convert the fields into matter state reaction in the body of the man. So it's an inertia based, yes. You change the emotion into laughter. So you convert the emotion to reaction of the physicality. This is what I call inertia of the man. As I said a few minutes ago, every level has inertia. It's how you interpret it, how you manifest it, or you show it.
Okay, we had a comment from Brazil, from Marco in the Q&A, who says, hello, Mr. Keshwick and searchers. We here in Brazil, thank you for the affection and love. We are in party, our souls dance of so much joy. I guess that's a rough translation from the Portuguese, probably. We have another question in the Q&A from Paulo, who says, in Brazil, there are 10,000 in a Telegram group. If each of these reaches 1,000, we are tens of thousands. When you started taking the liberating knowledge to everyone, at the same time, Brazil in April 15th, 2010, went in the UN Security Council, our former president, on a trip to his country, defended before the world the peaceful program of Iran. Our president was rejected by the geopolitical forces at that time, criticizing him as if he was innocent with the true intention of Mohammed Ahmadinejad. With the group of knowledge seekers growing more and more here, perhaps it is a result of this political action in the past, even ignoring the science that makes encounter with the soul. Question, could in this meeting of presidents, a plasma implant that grows and benefits the organic expansion of knowledge seekers from here?
I don't understand.
I think he's asking, could it be this meeting of presidents that help grow the expansion of the knowledge seekers from Brazil, this connection with Iran, where they apparently defended Iran, but got rejected by the forces of the world?
The situation with Iran is difficult. Iran is not the only one. You got to remember something. Maybe for the first time to be this close. If you remember, North Korea was under a lot of pressure, making blah blah and everything else, and nobody could understand the rapid development of the nuclear technology of North Korea. And now we see it silent past 3-4 years. Keshe Foundation released internally to the Chinese government and to certain officials who are important within EU, how North Korea is gaining knowledge, nuclear technology, rocket technology, and the rest. And in that disclosure, we disclosed to the governments that the technology is coming from European Space Agency, sold by the Belgium director into North Korea. Belgians were selling weapon technology developed by Europe through their director to North Korea through their government and the officials. And that door was closed very rapidly. And we see North Korea does not show much. They're trying to, but they cannot get, because Europeans were having access to the American latest technologies as part of being the same, working, collaborating. And this technology was getting sold by the Belgians within the EU space technology in a backdoor to the North Koreans. When this became in openness, the first time we disclosed it, a lot changed. We saw the end of Korea, North Korea development, because they can't receive any more free knowledge from EU through Belgians. And the Belgians tried to do the same with Boeing. They tried to sell the technology of European to Boeing, the same man, the same group. And now we see changes. It's the same with Brazil. Knowledge is there. Brazilian space technology is very mature. That's why we always pick to work with it. Now with the gift of the enhancement unit, it's the scientists who already have the knowledge in a very deep way can develop it more rapidly. Our objective is to give to the nations who are very rapidly developed and put them in not competition but collaboration to achieve the flight collectively, where you can fly in 0 times more or less, and then we see the present aircraft industry becomes obsolete, borders become obsolete. It's the pattern which we always worked. Go back to last week. I explained the situation very clearly about what happened, what happened after we left the Iranian embassy 2 weeks ago. Now you know the reason. You touch us, we wipe you out. You touch the technology the wrong way, you wipe yourself out of the arena. You touch another Iranian nuclear physicist, there'll be nobody there to touch us anymore, because we make sure that you touch, you wipe yourself out, not us. It's the same in Brazil. The Brazilian leaders understood the importance of the development of the nuclear technology. The club could not stay a club. I can show you the evidence of the attempt of my life on the screen now. 2 weeks ago by the Israelis, Mossad in Istanbul. It was just a pure luck that it wasn't set the way they set it. We give the knowledge freely. We do the knowledge freely. We, accept the knowledge freely, be it political, be it scientific. Brazilians leadership understood, because it's the progress. We cannot go into space if we don't fully understand the knowledge of the creation, which is nuclear plasma. Otherwise, you're still burning fuels and gases, what we are doing now. And the Brazilian scientists and government understood. And it's the same. It'll be the same. We don't get crucified by not knowing. We get crucified when we know and they want to show there is something wrong.
We have someone new here. the hand up. Claudia, could you go ahead if you like?
Yes, hi, Rick. Hello, Mr. Cash. It's a pleasure to talk to you again. My name is Claudia from Brazil. And my question is, you said in a teaching that our body disappear when we have 72 Teslas. And my question is, when we do exams like MRI and have 1.5 or until 3 Teslas, our fields change permanently or come back to the normal after the exams?
You mean when you go to the field radiation? Most of it in MRIs and X-rays, the body will disperse the energy. We do that in nuclear testings. When you go to the hospitals and they inject the nuclear material into your blood and take the radiation with the systems to see where the faults are or where the damage is in the body. These kind of radiations are temporary and it literally cleared out by the body within 24 hours. X-rays, if they hit the center of the nucleus, they create dislocation, but essentially they just pass through and the energy is absorbed by the body and then it dissipates as part of it. So it depends. We see sometimes faults with X-ray machines and MRI is when the beam is concentrated. And that creates a dislocation of the, what we call fields, or increase the fields of the GANs, and it moves to a new position. And that position then becomes permanent and can lead to damages and other things. Now we don't look at the MRIs and X-ray machines and nuclear materials for medical application as a matter state. We look at it as an energy state and what that energy does and what new position creates for it. So essentially, unless it's not directly, we do that in radiation therapy. In radiation therapy, we deliberately go for dislocating the cells. Especially they use it in cancers with precision. But in MRIs and X-rays and what we call medical radiation, it's generally dispersed. And when you see a damage, they usually repair the systems. MRIs need to be checked every 7 days, 14 days, that the field radiation is sporadic, is not concentrated in any part. Some of the MRI systems are dangerous to go in if they are not checked regularly, because it's a machine. If it at a certain point creates a concentrated field, it can create the next generation of problems.
Because change the spins of our cells, but come back again after the exam. So
yes, sometimes it goes back if it's not concentrated. Yes, it's a big difference. Is that more or less we use in a way the same fields as the X-ray machines and MRI machines and other systems like this. Even in the ultrasonic, in the system used in ultrasounds, we have that possibility because we are transferring fields to the body of the man. And now we understand the body of the man is made of gases. It absorbs part of it. And it reflects back, or it allows through what is transferred less of to reach as another energy. And then what happens to that energy? This was a turning point in my life when I was about 8 years old, when I literally was sleeping under the X-ray machine in Tehran, where I went with my father. This was point, what happened to this field? If it goes through me, what happens to it? What do I absorb? Trying to understand what question you raised. came to me some 50 odd years ago in Tehran. And I even remember the hospital. I remember the place because it changed the whole idea of innocent boy to a scientist. Then you try to understand which part of it stays with me, what goes through me, what is absorbed by me, and what do I give back. And this became a quest for 30, 40 years. When I saw the first MRIs coming out in the early 70s, I remember I wrote to my father because he was part of the electromedical in Tehran that can we get this to Iran? How fast? Do you know what this can do? My father wrote me, boy, you're too advanced for what is coming. These are, we have to see. Because if you literally could create the field strength within the MRI of the soul of the man, you can elevate the soul of the man in the MRI machine. But we don't have that knowledge because we are matter state positioned. We never understood the difference between matter and a plasma, which the body of man is not matter, it's a plasma. That's why it's soft, and it takes different shape of it. It allows a capacity. If you touch your skin and you push it, it goes up and down. It's a matter state. It cannot happen. Does it happen if with the iron, if you get a piece of iron and push it, does it go down? No. It happens within the skin of the man, within the structural body of the man, because we are made of gases. We push one star further, the other stars look, we push one magnet, the other magnets look. That's why we have a flexibility of the skin or the muscle tissues. We dislocate plasma, what we call gases, not matter state of it. And then in that position, the gases can dissipate fields from the source. If you look at it, if you concentrate the MRI on the soul of the man that derives the strength, you do what we do in the enhancement units. But with the enhancement units, we allow the soul of the physicality become within the structure of another field, which is a field of the system. We superimpose. And then the soul goes like what you call the dream state that you receive or what you want to see and who you want to make contact.
Okay, I appreciate. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It'll be very, very interesting when we put the soul of the man in these systems. And as we know, we are a collection of the information of the soul of the past. What our souls will manifest, what he has seen over centuries, thousands of years. Because now the knowledge becomes available on what you call the restricted level according to what we want to know about today. Would we see the soul or a person who's been sitting and working with Tesla? Would we find the people who work with Tesla and find their descendants, and by putting them into these systems, we hear the voice of Tesla because they heard it. It's recorded. His gentleness, his wisdom. And then go back to what I said years ago. Will bring man to see is all registered within the universe, the soul of the man. Nothing shall be hidden.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've got Raphael with a hand up here. I think he's ready to say something. Perhaps. Raphael, are you
Hello?
there? Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Cash. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the happy birthday and thank you for this gift. Was not expecting that. And thank you very much. The whole Brazilian community is very happy with this. And I just would like to share something that we share also in the One Nation. It was about our work here. And as we said, believe it or not, we started with just the sincere wish of 2 people here in our country, this work. So as we said, that's all you need to start. And then the rest grows out of it. And this is what we are feeling that's happening here in Brazil. As it was said by Paulo, we have now more than 11,000 members. But the main thing is how, oh, thank you, Rick. Do you want me to read, Rick? May I read?
Sure, that'd be a great idea. Yeah.
So this is what we share in the One Nation last Tuesday. So it's the power of intention, Brazil Telegram restored. So suddenly last week, we received information that the Brazilian Supreme Court was going to shut down Telegram in 5 days. We couldn't understand how this case got so quickly to the highest court in the land. We all felt this would disturb our work. Then towards the end of the silence period of our daily intention, we asked people to focus on resolution of the situation with Telegram. People felt a surge of energy through the group. To our surprise, right after our intention, a news flash came that Telegram just received the email from the Supreme Court, which previously had been lost. The next day, we organized our intention more clearly. Again, there was a great power in our group, and 1 day later, the Supreme Court said Telegram would remain open. So we just want everybody to know that the power to change our world is within us, and we encourage all the countries to organize themselves. It's hard to accept the simplicity with which we have access to the soul of the Creator. It's finding that sincere emotion and feeling inside and wanting to serve the others. Believe it or not, we started with just the sincere wish of 2 people. That's all you need to start, and then the rest grows. Thank you for listening, and thank you for all your love and care, Mr. Cash. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for your work. I was talking to some of our knowledge seekers, and interesting is that how the translators of the Keshe Foundation into their native language creates or has created those who actually, through the translating initially, understanding the essence of the soul of the technology and the science, and they become, what do you call it, totally geared up with the work of the foundation. We saw it in Fabio. We see it in Rafael. We see it with Mario in Keshe Foundation. And we see it with most of the translators. We see it with Pangnian into Chinese, and we saw it before. I think in the translation, it's not just the word which gets translated. They translate the essence of the emotion. And it's beautiful to see how they become the center of the knowledge and then the center of the foundation. In so many ways, when you wish it, you receive it. We went to Brazil with a wish to bring that elevation of the knowledge and technology beyond the restriction which was put by the Universal Council of Portugal on Brazil. And we see a lot of changes when people wish. The Brazilians have every night, I think, a session for the elevation of the soul of 5+1 that they keep on the piece of path, a path of peace, and how they work on it. And it's the wish which creates. It's the sun that it shines. It just, as I said, how many bulbs do you put next to each other to create that number, that light, and how it will shine? We see the same thing with the work of the Universal Council member of Italy, how Italians are working in the background. We see the same thing with Iran, with the members of the Keshe Foundation in Iran, how situation is changing. And gradually it adds up. One of the most discoordinated part of Keshe Foundation is where we speak the language, like in the United States and in England. The center has not been created except for those who just work within the structure of the British don't come together. The Americans, because everything is in English, why should we do that? There's a need translation, and they don't make it thousands of, hundreds of thousands of, but they have not managed to own it. But when it comes to language, they do, and through that translation, they learn more and they connect more. And we've seen that in Brazil. And it brings a reflection of what it is. When we were in Brazil about 2.5 years ago for the first time, and Rafael was the translator, I could feel the essence of the sincerity, the simplicity of understanding the truth about the soul of the man, and the knowledge was something secondary. And it just developed. There was a huge objection to, especially from the old guard. We saw one of them being disqualified from Facebook very recently for rhetorics, which came again back by the Belgians. He's been disconnected. His Facebook has been taken off for a temporary and most probably become permanent, objecting why we put Rafael to head the Keshe Foundation. We had a number of Brazilians who they thought they are entitled to be running the Keshe Foundation. They were entitled because they did so much physicality. We looked the light in the soul of the man. And it's proven to be correct. It's proven that our judgment by soul was more important than the position acquiring place in the Brazilian community. If you would have allowed any of the old guard stay there because they were 5 years before or 10 years before, Keshe Foundation Brazil would not have been where it is today. And we've seen it. It was a right decision. And we see the same thing when we appointed the two heads of the Keshe Foundation, the two ladies. There was a lot of rhetoric that this and that, but we've seen it. How the Keshe Foundation is going, even in China or outside. And it's part of this that the foundation will realize in the long term. What we see in the soul counts, not in the dimension of physicality. And Brazil will go a long, long way. I'm sure we met with the governmental people, with Rafael when I was in Brazil, the what we call advisors, ministerial advisors, and we see now with this gift, they will get involved. They'll become part of it, and they will extend this to knowledge sharing between most probably Brazil and Arizona and NASA and Iran. We'll build in the next few weeks what we call the space group of the Keshe Foundation, where the scientists around the world will be made members of this group on Telegram, that all can share knowledge. Doesn't matter where they come from NASA or the rest. Or some of them sit on the sideline just to learn and see what they can do to show better. Any of the groups which tries to hide things and trying to show they've done better or to come up with something, you'll find out they'll create their own demise. It's there when they block the receipt of knowledge. And we'll see step by step the process growing, and I'm sure Brazil will be a shining star in the process of what we call a space development. We knew it when they landed. We go back to the pictures which were released at the time when we landed in the skies of Brazil. It's beautiful. You have a beautiful nation and beautiful knowledge seekers, and those who were there for their own personal gain have already become silent and disappeared, and they'll disappear. Thank you very much for your work, Rafael, and your team, and a very happy birthday to you. I received a message from members of the Universal Council and others, that is your birthday on 26th, would I give a message for the teaching of tomorrow in the Brazilian chat? And I thought it's better for the whole world to know than just the Brazilians what the gift you have brought to the state of Brazil, knowledge seekers and the nation. And I think it'll be well used, and you know exactly where you have to go, which scientists you have to speak, because when these things land, you cannot put in your pocket. It's a big thing, and they have to react to it or get people to understand the knowledge. Thank you very much for your work, and a very happy birthday. A very beautiful, happy birthday. Any other question?
Just a reminder that the Brazilian group have a Zoom meeting tomorrow at 11 p.m., starting 11 p.m. Central European time. And I think I should post that perhaps in our meeting here. It's a public meeting for people.
They have a public meeting every night, if I'm correct, about Iran, the peace negotiations on Telegram. There's quite a few of them in there. I attended one of them very recently, and it's very nice, very beautiful the way they do the work. Maybe it's good to extend from 5+1 for the whole humanity, the world leaders. And the group has enough power that can do that. Any other question?
We had a comment in the YouTube in Iranian that I translated, or in Persian. Hello, Mr. Kesh. When are you coming to Iran? We are looking forward to it.
By the new law in Iran, you can ask for clearance before you enter Iran, and that the government guarantees you can return or leave Iran when you enter. And the Iranian Keshe Foundation has already submitted the application to the government. And we have to wait between 30 days and 90 days that they give you a clearance prior to entry. Because last time when I went to Iran, there was some problems with my exit, and I had to wait. This time, the Iranian office has already submitted the application form to the government through the channels, and we wait. If given guaranteed clearances by the Iranian government and SEPA, I'll be in Tehran. You have to achieve this nowadays before you go. If you're an ordinary person, no problem. But people in our position, you have to have a clearance that you can leave Iran upon your arrival. And we're waiting for, what do you call it, our team in Tehran to announce it's been done. There's a lot of work going on in Iran. We have made it very clear to the European and Americans how we're working in Iran, and that there is nothing that we are an organization, this and that. The factory in Tehran is getting set up. It's beautiful what Yusuf and the Iranian team are achieving. I think they'll go into production in the next few days after the Iranian celebration. Our work in Iran does not stop. And in so many ways, when I look at what Yusuf is achieving in Tehran is amazing. And you have to understand, we work within the restrictions. We work within what we call the structure that keeps the foundation safe both in Iran and outside. And maybe I can share with you some of the beautiful things. The Iran factory is getting up. It has received the ISO certificate, and this is Iran, the new factory part of it that you will see is set up to the highest level. And it'll go into production. And the beauty of it is this: even the toolboxes has the logo of the Keshe Foundation, KFSSI, on it. And we'll see this factory into production very, very soon, immediately after the holidays. But we are extending this factory to more. And it's nice to be there when the production, the factory opens up. This factory, this company has already received orders for export. and they go automatically into production for export of the materials to China and to Russia. Any other question?
There was something here that is of interest in the YouTube from Alpha. Mr. Kesh, thanks for your plasma knowledge. Alpha from French Guiana. How can the field of the soul of man can radiate voluntarily over the field of the body of the human? Is it about purity of thought?
Is purity of accepting, allowing. That's all. Is to understand I can do that. I can allow physicality to be what I call in parallel and not subordinate. If we make the physicality subordinate to the soul, then we make the same mistake as before, where we superimpose the physicality over the soul. It's a balance, and how much you can change. You can do it with a heartbeat. You can do it with a understanding of the heartbeat, the true plasmatic heartbeat, not a heartbeat of the man that you see in the physical dimension.
Okay, thank you for that. I get the feeling you want to wrap things up here, perhaps.
It's no problem. Thank you very much. If you feel that way, we go most of the time. We are within the time limit we are.
Don't have any more hands up. There's a couple more questions.
Yeah, we're nearly over 3 hours. Anyway, let's see what happens and see what we shall do in the coming days. We will see in the first week of April, hopefully, the movement of the first units into Arizona. Many of you will be interested to understand the technology. The units will be flown into Arizona in the coming days. And then it's not there for you to go and see. It has to go through the process that those who are considered needing the what I call the enhancement in the body enhancement, what we call emotion enhancement unit, will benefit by it. And part of these systems is devoted to serve the American veterans who need that help. And we'll see from there on we take over, and these wellness centers will start from there on. Thank you very much for today, and we'll see each other hopefully next week.
Just wanted to mention also about the let's see, the bundles. I'm looking for the bundles. There we are, the Easter bundles.
The Easter bundles, yeah.
And we should mention them before Easter comes. We have the different Easter bundles, as was mentioned in the last two Knowledge Seekers workshops. And they go by various names and various products. And I'll put the link into the chat here so that people can have access to that. And there's the Curious Bunny, the Spa Bunny, the Head to Toe Bunny, Gardening Bunny, Energy Bunny, Protection Bunny, and Fashion Bunnies. So people can keep that in mind to check that out, and maybe you'll find something. Pardon me?
I said we have plenty of bunnies.
Lots of bunnies. There's the cute little bunny picture as well. No bunnies included in the package. I think that's it. Any other announcements we should know about? there's the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace coming up as per usual for next Tuesday, which starts at 4 p.m. Central European time. Also, I'll mention that there's a time change for those who are on the daylight savings time, and the Central European time changes to Central European summer time, CEST. So there'll be an hour difference in our time between the various times. So people will have to check out your local time to see how it corresponds to the new CES time, which I think that changes on Sunday coming up. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed. And hopefully we meet again next week.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cash, for
Thank you very
yet
much.
another workshop here. 425 at this point, the Knowledge Seekers workshops. And we look forward to you next week as well.
Thank you very much. Don't forget, we're just before 1st of April next week, which is 31st of March, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much. See you next week.
Bye for now. All right, we'll go out with the Flight Enhancement Spaceship Unit music version and have something to clap and dance to here, along with the knowledge that we've learned today. Okay, bye everyone. See you in the next public workshop.